Let's say you missed a mortgage payment last month, and maybe the month before that too. While life happens, job loss, medical bills, or maybe just a tough season, but now you're starting to get those letters in the mail from your lender and you're wondering, how much time do I really have before I actually lose my home? Well, if you live in Tennessee, there's something called the 120-day rule that gives homeowners a little breathing room before foreclosure can legally begin. But not understanding how it works could cost you big time. In this video, I'm breaking down exactly what the 120-day rule is and how it protects you, what happens after that window closes, and what you need to do if you're already behind. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm Molly, a seasoned real estate investor with Cash Out of My Home, a home buying company here in Chattanooga. And we've been helping homeowners across Tennessee navigate through tough situations like foreclosure, probate, and inherited properties for years now. So let's get right into it. What is the 120-day rule? Let's break down what the 120-day rule actually means. If you fall behind on your mortgage payment, whether it's due to anything like job loss, health issues, or anything else in your life, your lender can't just exactly turn around and foreclose on your house the next day. Federal law requires them to wait at least 120 days from the date of your first missed payment before they can officially start that foreclosure process. And that 120-day window is meant to give you time to get caught up, work something out with your lender, or explore your other alternatives like loan modifications, maybe a repayment plan, or even selling the home before things actually escalate. Think of it as a built-in grace period, but it's not a free pass. Those days go by super quick, especially if you're juggling financial stress amongst other things in your personal life. For example, if you missed your first payment in January, the earliest your lender could start foreclosure proceedings would be sometimes in May. And that's assuming that they've already sent out the proper notices and followed the legal steps. But here's the key, those 120 days aren't just a waiting game. They're your opportunity to take action. The more proactive you are during this time, the more control you have over the outcome. Now, while the 120-day rule applies in most cases, there are a few important exceptions that can accelerate foreclosure, and they're often the reason homeowners feel blindsided. The first big one is that due on sale clause. This kicks in when the ownership of the home is transferred without the lender's consent. It could be something as innocent as transferring the property into a trust, or as common as signing over a deed to a family member after an unfortunate death in the family. And we have seen this firsthand in our experience. One client that we were working with in Hickson, Tennessee, added a relative to the deed to help with caregiving, and the lender treated it as a violation, demanding full repayment of the loan immediately. The intention of our client wasn't to dodge the mortgage, it was to protect the home, but it triggered a faster foreclosure process anyway. Another scenario is when your loan becomes involved in someone else's foreclosure auction. For example, if you have a second mortgage, a HELOC, or even outstanding HOA fees, any of these lien holders can initiate foreclosure if your primary lender doesn't have to sit on the sidelines. They may step in early to protect their interest even before the 120 days are up. We had a case in Cleveland, Tennessee, where the HOA filed first and the lender piggybacked off of that action. The homeowner had no clue that the clock had even started. And here is the real tip. Most homeowners have no idea who holds secondary liens on their property, or certain transactions, even ones meant to protect their home, could actually trigger or accelerate that foreclosure date. That's why we always recommend pulling a current title report and an in-depth, detailed title report if possible. It's really not that expensive, it's a couple $100, but it can reveal exactly who's in line to take action against your property and your equity. At the end of the day, the 120-day rule is a buffer. It's not a shield. If you're navigating a complex situation like probate, divorce, or multiple liens, the timeline can shift rapidly, and the best move is to get ahead before the lender does. All right, now let's talk about how foreclosure actually plays out here in Tennessee, because it's a bit different than in other states. Tennessee is a non-judicial foreclosure state, which means that lenders don't have to go through the court system to take your house. That alone speeds up this process significantly. And here's how it works. Once those 120 days have passed and no resolution has been made, the lender can move forward by issuing a notice of default and then a notice of sale, often within a matter of weeks of each other. In Tennessee, they're only required to give you 60-day notice before the foreclosure sale date, and that notice is typically published in a local newspaper, and it's not going to be sent directly to your email, your inbox, your mailbox, or even be told to you directly. Also important, Tennessee doesn't have the right of redemption period after the sale like some states do. So once the foreclosure is finalized and it's done, the new buyer, whether it's the bank or the third party, gets to take ownership pretty much right away, and you lose any legal right to get that home back. That's why timing is everything when it comes to foreclosure in Tennessee. And we've worked with families in places like Red Bank, East Ridge, Chickamauga, Knoxville. Doesn't matter, if you're in Tennessee, they were shocked at how quickly things have moved once that 120-day mark passed. One client that we had in Farragut in Knoxville was under the impression that they had 6 months minimum, and by the time that they called us, the auction date was already set. Thankfully, we were able to help them sell before the auction, but it was definitely down to the wire, and it was a crazy headache and a lot of stress for all of the parties involved. So the key takeaway here is in Tennessee, the process is fast, silent, and really unforgiving. And if you don't know what to look for, you're in trouble. Once you've hit that 120-day mark, the next move is on you because your lender has already all of the legal right that they need in order to move forward. If you're in that 120-day window or even past it, it's easy to feel stuck, frozen even, but the truth is that you have more power than it feels like, especially if you act early. Foreclosure isn't just an event, it's a process. And the earlier you insert yourself into that process, the more control that you still have. The first thing that I always recommend is to communicate with your loan servicer right away. Do not wait for them to chase you down, but be the one to start that conversation. Under federal law, they're required to walk you through something called loss mitigation options, basically ways to prevent foreclosure and keep your home. This can include repayment plans or even a short sale, but here's the key, those options can shrink the longer that you wait. We've seen folks call on day 30 and get into a 6-month payment deferral, and others who wait until day 118 and they had almost zero choices left. So if you're not sure what to say or you're afraid of being talked into circles by your bank or your lender, you should get a HUD-approved housing counselor involved in your case. Now, these people will work with you for free, they're federally backed, and they speak the lender's language. We work with counselors in the past here in Hamilton and in Bradley County, and they've helped our clients freeze foreclosure timelines just by jumping in early and organizing the game plan. They're not salespeople, but they are trained to advocate, and they do understand the system better than most attorneys actually do themselves. Now, for some people, the reality is that keeping the home just doesn't make the most sense for you anymore. Maybe the home needs repairs that you're not able to afford, or maybe the monthly payment was never sustainable to begin with, and that's completely okay. You still have options, and one of the best options that you have is to sell your property before the bank takes it back. We've helped sellers in the same exact situation sell their home fast, and in many cases have allowed them to walk away with some money in their bank account without leaving any money and everything on the table. Sometimes even with a little bit of money in your pocket is just enough to start fresh, and it's better than having a Chapter 13 bankruptcy on your credit report or an official foreclosure. And here's the bottom line. Lenders don't want your house, they want the resolution. But if you go dark, they're going to assume the worst case scenario and they're going to move forward with foreclosure. Ignoring the problem does not pause it, ever. And whether you want to stay in the home or you want to walk away clean, you have to be the one to make that first move. It looks better on you, and they're going to be more willing to work with you. We've seen the full spectrum from homeowners who saved their property with one phone call to those who waited way too long and they lost everything over a technicality. So please do not let that be your story. Now let's address some of the common misconceptions. One of the biggest myths that we hear is I'm safe as long as I'm within the 120 days. And that is not entirely true. Yes, lenders can't officially start foreclosure until that 120-day window passes, but that doesn't mean that they're not already preparing behind the scenes. They're probably lining up attorneys, collecting documents, and monitoring you since your missed payment. That 120 days isn't a timeout, it's a countdown. Another misconception that we hear a lot of the times is I have a government-backed loan, so they'll be more forgiving towards me. Well, the truth is federally backed loans like FHA or a VA loan do have the 120-day rule and they do follow that, but they still move forward with foreclosure if you don't act. We've seen plenty of people lose their homes with government-backed loans simply because they assumed that the rules did not apply to them and they had more protection than they actually did. And the last one that we hear pretty often is that they won't foreclose because my house is in bad shape. Unfortunately, the condition of your home doesn't stop the process. We've seen lenders foreclose on properties with missing roofs, even homes with no HVACs. If there's any value in the house or in the land, or if they're just trying to clear their books, they're gonna move forward regardless with no questions asked. So the moral of the story, don't rely on assumptions. If you're behind on payments, the worst thing that you can do is wait around thinking that you've got more time than you actually do. Foreclosure doesn't start with a sale, it starts with silence. And the 120-day rule, it's not a cushion, it's that countdown. What you do during the time determines whether you're steering the ship or whether you're watching it adrift. And I've worked with homeowners all over Tennessee, from Chattanooga to Clarksville, who thought they had time until they didn't. The ones who made it out on the other side, well, they didn't wait. They asked the right questions, they weighed out their options, and they got real about what was possible today. So here's my biggest piece of advice is don't let the fear of losing your home keep you from protecting it. Talk to your lender, run a title search, understand your position, and if selling makes more sense than holding onto the property, make sure that you're working with someone who knows how to close fast, handle messy liens if necessary, and can communicate with your lender on your behalf. Once again, I'm Molly with Cash Out of My Home, and we have helped hundreds of homeowners sell their property through tough situations like this over the last several years. And we're not just about buying houses, but we're about helping people land on their feet. If you're ready to take control of your situation, feel free to visit us. Our information is down below. And if we've helped you see the bigger picture, please give it a like or a subscribe. Ask any questions. We'd be happy to address it personally or in the next video. Thank you so much for watching and good luck.